Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry
go live to create.
Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Hello and welcome to On Location in Lethbridge. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Michael. This is
Hudson Lewis Scott. I'm an independent filmmaker, born and bred in Lethbridge, Alberta.
Heck yeah. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to dive into some icebreaker games with you, get to know you a little bit. Our first thing on the agenda is a little bit of trivia. How are you with trivia typically?
Usually pretty bad, but
Okay.
I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Awesome. We will dive right in. So our first piece of trivia for you, based on Lethbridge. So the first mayor of Lethbridge was A, Sir Alexander Galt, B, William Henderson, C, Charles Alexander McGrath, or D, Nicholas Sharon. They're all very familiar places if you're from Lethbridge.
I'm going to go with B.
B, William Henderson? No, unfortunately not. Apparently, yeah, it was C, Charles Alexander McGrath.
McGrath.
Our next piece of Lethbridge trivia for you is, before becoming Lethbridge, our city was a small mining town called A, Black Coulee, B, Coalbanks, C, Quarry Valley, or D, Prospect River.
I'm gonna go with D.
Oh, unfortunately not. It was B, Coalbanks.
Coalbanks.
So we will dive into our next game, which is This or That.
Yes.
So I'll let you do the honors. Just pick one at random, give it a read,
Alright.
and we'll see what your preferences are.
Winter or summer? Definitely summer.
Summer?
I can't stand the cold. I have extremely poor circulation.
Okay.
So like it's every winter I'm just suffering because I have no blood flow in my toes and fingers.
Oh no. Okay, I'll pick one and we'll see what we get.
Right.
Oh, no. Truck or car?
You know, a truck would serve me well for technical purposes, but I do like a nice car, honestly.
Yeah, super fair. I think I would also go with car. I feel like maybe when you get the truck, you become that guy with the truck.
Yeah.
And then everybody needs help.
Yeah, maybe it's a thing where if you have it, then it's you become that person more so when you see like how it benefits you.
Yeah.
Donkey or horse?
Okay.
I'm gonna go with horse.
That's super fair.
I like a good horse.
Yeah. Being in Alberta, you know, all horses are great. I will go with donkey because there's a story behind this one.
Okay.
In England, I went to the beach when I was young, and they didn't have horses. They had donkeys. So I rode a donkey, and that is what it is. So I feel like I just have to go with donkey.
Not a knock against donkeys.
No, of course not. Awesome. We will move swiftly along to Tumbling Towers,
Okay.
and I will let you do the honors, and we'll see what questions we
Okay.
get.
Should we knock this down on like the first go?
Yeah. 29. What's a song you could listen to on repeat, if anything comes to mind?
First song that comes to mind for me for that is Sweetest Perfection by Depeche Mode. Really love that song. That's my favorite, probably my favorite off of Violator, which I think is their best album.
For myself, the first one that came to mind was a song called Bet by Russ. I love hip-hop and rap, and it's just like I don't know. It's just a great song. In my
I don't think
opinion.
I've heard that either, actually.
We'll have to exchange songs.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I will. Let's see if I knock it over. Doo-doo-doo. There we go. Let's do that one. Another 20. We're gonna go with 25. What do you wish you had more of?
Maybe it's just because, like, I'm coming off of, like, a big project and I'm, like, completely broke, but I need more money right now.
Yeah.
That's not always, like, I mean, in general, I would like more time to myself. 'Cause I think that's very important in, like, my creative process, especially, like, taking time to write, too. I never feel like I have enough time to do that in a general kind of day setting.
I think something that I've been exploring a lot lately is just like connections and just connections with people, and even like connecting other people. with each other. I just think that there's great value in that. And this is if I have to go with either not time or money, of course. There's just something about connection.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And also, though, like you said, like time to yourself, and that's also important. But yeah, I think for me, it's knowing that there's like a community to belong to, and that's one of the things I love about Lethbridge. And yeah,
yeah, definitely.
I'll let you pick the next one.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. 27.
27. Okay. What's a book you couldn't put down, if any?
Recently, I read this book called The Axe by Donald Westlake, which I really liked. And it was actually turned into a movie this year that I saw on Friday called No Other Choice.
Okay.
Which it was a very interesting adaptation of that book because the read is incredibly grim. But the movie is one of the funniest things I've seen in probably like 3 or 4 years, I'd say. I was having a blast. That movie is awesome. Like I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe at points, and it was constantly just really witty and funny, and the characters are all very memorable. They all have very distinct attributes about themselves. Top-notch writing, and that director really, really knows how to do these very interesting, intricate shots. He's so great at out-of-the-box ways to present his stories, and I just find it really fascinating and invigorating and inspiring.
Nice. I think for myself, I don't read too much. I know Michael is more of a reader than myself, but I would have to go with The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It was ages ago that I first read it, but yeah, when I read that for the first time, I didn't put it down, which was unusual for me because usually I just don't stick with them. Do you have anything that you've been reading or that you couldn't put down?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that, Daniel. I guess a book that I couldn't put down. I think Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism, great book. Nonfiction. I really enjoyed that, really liked it, so just read it real quick in a few days. So.
That's awesome. And I'm super glad that we got to know a bit more about you, some of your preferences, some of the things you're reading, which sounds super interesting. I'm super excited to dive into our interview with you and get to know a little bit more about your journey and some of the stuff you've done. Just to recap, if you could just tell us again what it is you do.
So I'm an independent filmmaker. I've been writing a lot longer than actually like directing things, but I started around like 4 or 5 years ago now. It's around in the summertime, so I think this is coming up on like my 5th anniversary now since I first made my first short.
Were there any artistic disciplines or anything artistic you did before that? You mentioned like 5 years ago you kind of got into filmmaking more seriously, it sounds like, but was there anything before?
I always loved writing. Even before I knew like what a screenplay was or that movies were written, I always loved movies too. It was probably, oddly enough, I kind of grew up on the movie A Clockwork Orange. I watched it like way too early, like when I was probably like 12 or 13. But that's the movie that really opened me up to movies being a part of somebody's artistic expression, and like pieces of themselves in the movie, as opposed to all the blockbuster classics that you see as like a kid. Even though I still have a lot of love and reverence for those movies, that one was the one that really opened me up to what movies could be, and that they could be like whatever you want them to be as somebody making them. Because that world and that setting and the look of it and how the characters talk is just completely different than like anything I had ever seen.
Coming back slightly to the writing portion of it, was that like a fostered thing? Like, did your parents foster that in you, or did you just like go for it?
Not really. My parents weren't really like artistic people at all. They did like some more like avant-garde things, which I think definitely like added to my taste overall. I'd had a compulsion just ever since I was like, like 6 years old. Weird little things going on in my head, and I had no other way to like express it really.
What impact do you think that had on you, like as a kid, like taking that time to be by yourself and with these, you know, thoughts and just getting them out.
I mean, it wasn't really like too much of a choice. Anybody who's known me for like a very long time will say like, you know, nobody like really disliked me or anything, but every time I would just be at the back of the class and say something like really dark and
Sure.
people would be off-put by that or a bit alienated, but you know, it's just part of it, you know, having a active imagination. I kept it to myself a lot. It's just something that I would take pride in, like writing to myself, and these stories that were just made for me, I could have and kind of improve on it as I go too. Because like I've always been a very like critical person of myself. What can I like improve upon, or what can I do better? Like, is it really like satisfying me in the way that I need it to? You know, at that particular moment, at least.
Was that like a part of your process, like even since writing, like in your youth, like kind of picking things apart and being critical, do you think?
Yeah, like even for stories that they could be like just thought of on the day, they could be stupid, they could be like, you know, whatever, but just like having it down and having it exist and then analyzing like why I kind of felt the need to create that, because I don't really write from like a point of like trying to explore a specific thing ever. I don't write on like themes. That's like writing at its worst, when you're trying to like shoehorn something into a story that you're trying to explore or whatever. I'm just really focused on creating interesting characters and seeing where that kind of takes me.
You had mentioned like Clockwork Orange, of course, and how that was maybe one of the first instances where you felt like that was the filmmakers like putting a part of themselves into the piece. And I'm just curious if you got any sense of that in like your earlier writing or any of your earlier things.
Yeah, my early writing was mostly, I would try to explore like subjects and things, which I didn't necessarily, because it did make it like kind of torturous after like after a while, but it did really help. And when I'm in like a crisis or something, I like to write and just vomit all those feelings onto the page, just because it's kind of cathartic in that way, and then you shape it into something kind of as it goes. If you still like remember what those feelings were or like what you were feeling at that time, I feel like it's a really good way to sort of investigate that and translate it in a way that's a bit more cohesive than like trying to, you know, verbalize it, at least for me.
That idea of like, you know, being maybe, even if it's not a crisis, even if it's like just a more serious time or even a great time, right? Like, and just, it sounds like, using that medium, that artistic outlet to process those things.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's super important, you know? And so maybe for people that, you know, haven't tried it in that way, or like, they don't think they're good enough, they're super self-critical, right? Like I'm just curious if there's anything more you can share about that.
More just you having the confidence to actually go out and do it, and even if you know it's going to be bad, just doing it anyway. Because I mean, if you look at any of my early shorts, they're just stupid things I thought of like in a day, and I'm like, well, just film it and like see what happens. My first film that I ever did was thought of on the day. I didn't have anything else to do. I just brought my friend to this place and we just made this thing. We didn't have any sound equipment or anything. We just ADR'd the whole thing. It's a good way to just like break into it. And then you're already in there. You get the ball rolling. And that's what made me be like, well, I want to make another one that's like better than this one. And then it kind of snowballs after that.
That first one that you mentioned, was that a part of Plastered Gore TV, or was that like what was next after like your kind of early writing?
That was the first the Monster versus Red Bull video. It was the first one I ever made, and that was made in a day just with some friends. I had made this like it was just a bunch of like miscellaneous things that I had just had, because I had wanted to make something else before that, and I had like all this equipment, but you know, you just get like petrified thinking, because you kind of know subconsciously that the first thing you're gonna make is gonna be like kind of bad. So that, I think it was, yeah, I didn't do anything with that for like a year probably, and then yeah, one of the days I just said screw it, you know, and just went out. I had this like old just like potato cannon that me and a friend made that I used as like this makeshift squib that we used for like blood effects and things. I still remember like some of the looks we got driving back, because we were both, like, me and my friend both like coated in blood in like the front seat, and we had these three people in the back seat. It must have looked like some hostage situation taking place.
You mentioned something about subconsciously, you know that the first thing you make is gonna be like bad, and I think that's like so relatable. Like, and I think that's maybe what stops a lot of people from, or even if they do take the first steps, they'll stop themselves from like editing it or finishing it. You know, like, so. What else can you say about that?
If you need to be able to stand being bad, I feel if you're in a creative. The challenge I like to pose to myself is like, well, how bad it can get before you look at it and you can like make improvements to it afterwards. It just needs to exist first, and then you can really shape it into something good like afterwards, especially with writing. Film, it's a bit different, but like, again, it's the same sort of thing of how can I improve like the next one after that, and looking at like how you've improved too, I feel is very important as well. I really enjoy looking at really early short films of like acclaimed directors and people that I admire too, because that can be a very interesting insight into like what they're capable of, and seeing like how they were doing it with like, you know, just a camera and like their friends, and just making some like scrappy thing together, and and just putting it all together and seeing it through.
Yeah. And I feel like this might go back a little bit. It's kind of like a through line. It sounds like gore or horror. It sounds like it started pretty early, like your passion for it, writing out just scenes that come to mind. But I'm curious, like, do you feel like it, like, did it start there, or how did it amp up? Like, was it not until you went out with your friend and the spud gun and you like, what kind of effect did that have on your passion for the genre?
Well, I had always been a fan of like, because it just comes down to my taste personally. That was shaped a lot by like that early viewing of A Clockwork Orange. It was something that like really made me think about like what I had seen, and it really got me into like film criticism that way, where I would think about like the emotional impact it had on me, and dissecting these characters, where it's a very interesting glimpse into a mind of somebody who has like psychopathic or sociopathic tendency. The whole film is shown from his perspective, where it's not necessarily reality that you're seeing,
Right.
which is like why the violence is so, it feels like a romp a lot of the time in that movie.
Right.
It's not like graphic, but it is still like disturbing in the way that it's almost presented in like a gleeful kind of fashion, because that's how he feels about it. After that, it was just a matter of like, I quickly got really into like foreign cinema, like I just, and the really interesting like movements that came about from like especially a lot of like European filmmakers. I really gravitate towards their work. They just don't, they're like way beyond like what anybody in the US is doing in terms of like what they're willing to put in their movies and how far they're willing to take things, but in a way that's still, it still fits with the story and the characters, and it's presented in a more like eloquent way than just like being there for purely shock value. It really resonates with me if it has like a connection to the character, like if the characters are well written, or if it has a special place in that movie where you understand the choices of like why it was put there.
It just comes back to that idea of like confidence, like put it in there, like go with that gut feeling, do it, see what it comes of it.
I would create more things that I kind of wanted to see around here, which is like really visceral and intense stories and characters, sort of presenting things in a different sort of fashion. Like I can make it as like violent or as gory as I wanted. And, like just seeing how far I could go with a lot of the things that I did, and just trying to get like a bit more ambitious like every time with every subsequent project.
Yeah.
It's been a really good artistic journey so far.
I'm really curious about like the foreign stuff.
Yeah.
And like where in your kind of timeline was that? Like, was that, yeah, where
I
was
want to
that?
say it was around like, because I had a phase when I was like 14, 15, where I had found this site where it had all of these like South Korean films on there. And I watched this one called Old Boy, which is now my favorite movie. First viewing of that movie is a guttural experience, like, because it's a very interesting modern adaptation of Greek tragedy, which really got me into like old texts and old tragedies, but it took it and made it kind of its own thing. But it's kind of like Oedipus Rex in a way, so that made me seek that out, and then other Greek tragedies as well, and seeking out kind of like modern adaptations of those too. But that movie in particular, I feel, is like a very good like gateway into this like South Korean cinema and just foreign cinema in general. It starts out, this guy is just imprisoned in this hotel room for 15 years with no explanation as to why or how he was imprisoned there.
Okay.
And he's released on some random day, and he's just tasked with finding who did it to him and why in 5 days. So you understand his need for like vengeance, like right off the bat, because it's such an extreme situation, and you just the question being like, why was he put there, is just such a strong, dramatic question to have at the center of it, and it does pay off in like an extremely visceral and disturbing fashion, because like it's a very energetic, fun movie for like the first 2/3 of it, as you're trying to unravel this mystery with him. It feels kind of comic booky in a way. There's a lot of like really fun like fight scenes in there, especially the one in the hallway, which is like iconic at this point. And then it turns into something like so like just gross and disturbing at the end, like, and it's just a gut punch. Like, it's the beautiful way to end the movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was very, very emotionally effective.
And so that was like when you were 14 and 15-ish?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And because one thing I'm picking up on is just like I think when most people think about watching movies, it's like, oh, I want to cry. It's like heartfelt, or it's like, I want to think. It's like intellectual. Whereas I really love this idea of like this guttural aspect, right? That you seem to go for and that you seem to appreciate and found early on.
Yeah, and I like movies that can really pull like uncomfortable emotions out of me, because especially now, since I've watched a lot of stuff, and it takes like a lot for me to really, engage and feel what I used to, like back when I was watching all these crazy movies for like the first time.
Right.
But something else I really appreciate too is when you can kind of feel like what the filmmaker is feeling like while they're making it.
I would be remiss if we didn't mention Plastic Gore TV in more detail. So if you're cool, we've gotten pretty good understanding of like your influences, I think.
Definitely.
And so like I'm just really curious, like when did Plastic Gore TV start? And
It just started. It started with that first one where I just was kind of bored on a random weekend and decided to make that first thing just to kind of get things rolling. But after that, it almost became like a compulsion or like an addiction in a way, because I felt like every time I finish something, I'm like, I'm going like too long without like having something in like that I'm actively doing, right? And I'd get like antsy to make something else. So I think the first few were just a lot of just one-off like skits and things that I was making. The first one that really like I took a lot of time making was like the Matthew Deere music video, and that was very much inspired by films like Bad Lieutenant or like Requiem for a Dream. It's just a crazy like this crazy character going about on this like really insane like bender, just like using like abusing all these drugs and digging his grave just deeper and deeper like as he's going. It's like a kind of fever dream, but we went all over the place for that one. That was fun, just going and picking up like being able to just be like, oh, we're shooting today, let's just go to like some random location and see what we can kind of get away with. We made it work.
Using the resources at hand, right? Yeah. So how long ago did you start that specifically?
5 years ago was when it first started. And then I think it took me like a year to a year and a half of making those like skits before I really wanted to like kind of up what I was doing into something more story driven. The Matthew Deere video was one I really spent like much more time on than a lot of the other ones. And then after that, it was just kind of seeing kind of like what else I could do like after that, whether it was focusing on something that I hadn't done before, like maybe like action or like just something different.
I'm curious about your work outside of Plastic Gore TV, just because I do think that it is like a very relatable thing, like having something else that you do, whether or not it's creatively engaged or not, and just what that means for like your energy and time, and maybe your journey in creating these things and how it's impacted that.
Right now, I work as a videographer at Outrageous Advertising. So I do a lot of like corporate and social media advertisements for like automotive places and like golf courses. I think the thing I did there that was like actually like kind of fulfilling was this commercial I made for Jade Homes for their 25th anniversary. That was quite fun.
One of the questions we always try to ask people is just how has your artistic practice influenced your everyday life, do you feel?
I feel like I'm a lot better at like talking to people and reaching out to them and just being a bit more personable and conveying myself a bit better as well too, so I don't come off like as strange as I maybe used to. You like putting yourself into your work, but you're not necessarily your work, you're a person, and nice. I think that's a lot of like what, because a lot of people kind of assume, like people's work is kind of like, because if it is like an artistic endeavor, they do put themselves into their work, so it must be kind of like their work, but like, I don't know, I think I like to think I'm pretty chill.
I do think that's the time we have for this segment.
Sounds good.
I have thoroughly appreciated all of the insights and stuff that you've shared. So this is On Location in Lethbridge. I'm Daniel.
I'm Michael, and this is
Hudson Lewis Scott.
And we will be right back with one more segment.
Welcome to On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this is
Hudson Lewis Scott.
This is the showcase portion. And so with that, we want to kind of, showcase your work. And of course, it being primarily film, we're going to see some images from some of the films you've made. The first one we want to cover was called Prescription Psychosis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about that one.
That kind of came about when I'd been like just chronically online, just on YouTube, and I'd come across these like ASMR videos, and like some of them I found going deeper into that kind of rabbit hole got like very strange very quickly. I had this image of this man like trying to make a video like that, and it going just kind of like completely off the rails and like invading his like life, and like all these weird kind of ideas kind of came about. And it was an idea that I thought was small enough I could just film it like where I was. That was probably the first like short film I had done that was over 5 minutes. I still look back on that, and I appreciate all the people that were willing to help me with that. It was a very small, intimate kind of production. I think there's only like 2 to 3 people like at any given time, like apart from myself. So yeah, just very scaled down and very, very small, but yeah.
Do you remember how long it would have taken you to film that?
I filmed it over the course of, I want to say, 3 weekends. I filmed like the intro portion before he goes outside on one weekend, then when he comes back on the next, then the whole kind of like red room section, and then the ending on that same day, I believe, after we got the actor cleaned up and all of that. The thing I remember most about that though is just how bad the mosquitoes were, like going into that forested segment for the last like 3 shots that we needed, because we like all of us just got eaten alive out there, and coming back it looked like we had like smallpox just because of how many mosquito bites we had, but it was worth it. We got the shots and the lighting was great that day.
That's awesome. Yeah, kind of going down our list here, kind of the second one we thought worth talking about was City Song. Tell me about that.
I didn't know anybody because this was when I was living in Calgary. I didn't know anybody there, and like I had no friends from that area, so I put out like a flyer, I think, on some of like the university like bulletin boards that they had there and things like that for just anybody who was willing to help. And like there was 2 people that got back to me. One was the actor that I had in the film, who actually I met him at like a screening for like SAT's film and video division. He agreed to do it after I chatted with him a bit, and then my friend Jomo contacted me after seeing the flyer because he was going to U of A, and he was a photographer that was looking to get into cinematography. So he agreed to do it because I didn't think anybody was willing to do the kind of things that I needed for like the main character in there. So I just figured I might as well try it and see how it goes. So yeah, some of the stuff I filmed myself, just like trying to set up the shot, like, and experimenting until I could find an angle that I liked, or and doing it like as many times as I needed, like just by myself in my room. But a lot of the best shots in there come from Jomo, especially like his handheld was very good. After I kind of explained what I wanted, he just kind of got me like immediately, which was great.
You said you primarily started as a writer, you're making your own films. Like, yeah, what was that like to be now the actor in your film?
It was definitely a change, and I kind of was committing to that, like, even beforehand, just growing out my facial hair and, like, kind of, you know, looking kind of raggedy for a couple months there, like, doing all of that. Because it was another, like, very intimate kind of thing where it was just me and those 2 pretty much for the entirety of the shoot. So, you know, you could try things out, and like there wasn't really anybody to be like embarrassed in front of. So you're free to just like try things, and like especially that ending kind of freak out that I was doing. Like I didn't realize how physically taxing that can be, doing that for like 2 minutes at a time, like of constant movement. Yeah, that exhausted me.
The other one we wanted to talk about was TDFTW.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
That came about actually because I had gone to a birthday party which was clown themed. It was like the most uncomfortable thing, putting on all this makeup, because I just plastered this white face on and made it really, really grimy. But like right after that, Shushu had released their new album, and I'd listened to that like right after, and I'd listened to that song and immediately had these images kind of flash into my mind while I was listening to that song. And I thought it would be a really great concept to have, like, because I'd never really done like a gang thing. So I figured I'd make it like really over the top and crazy and intense, like really high octane, even compared to like other things I've done. Just like a constant, like every single aspect adds to the speed and ferocity of it. But it was, yeah, I had a blast doing it.
And that was a music video. Yeah, what was that like filming a music video versus a scripted piece?
Not too different. I still shot list everything that I want for both of them. A music video, I have a bit more of a guideline of like what I'm envisioning, just because I listen to the song like many times when I'm putting together a shot list for a music video, because like when I make the story, I don't want it to just be like a vibe set to the music. I want it to be a part of the music, so I edit all of my music videos to the rhythm of the song a lot of the time, as best as I can, of course, because you know there's always like little things that I can't get like perfectly, but I try my best.
And then another one we want to talk about, which is a more recent piece, the Serious Serial piece. Tell me about that.
That was made as part of a 48-hour challenge with Cuff, which was, yeah, it was quite fun. We were hauling ass on that one. Like, I think they showed up here at around like 8. I had the script pretty much written. But again, with those things, it's kind of just like you write like a first draft and then they take it and kind of make it their own, you know, because you don't have the time to kind of like memorize it and go off of it. And I always encourage like improvisation whenever I'm making a short, just because I feel like it's fun and spontaneous, and actors surprise me all the time with the things that they do, and I want to see that. Like, it's something I value a lot. I came up with pretty much like immediately after the prompts were given, like just making a huge mess in the iconic kitchen with the retro flooring. It was just a lot of fun to shoot and a lot of fun having everybody there. We wrapped at like 2 p.m., which was, yeah, pretty fast. Like, only a few hours of shooting gave us time to clean, and like I was confident going into the edit. Like, I think I finished like the next day at around like 4 or something, which is not, yeah, it wasn't terrible. Like, I wasn't rushing to complete it or anything. It was a very relaxed shooting experience, honestly, despite the tight turnaround.
I think that's all the time we have for this segment.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed just learning about your process and talking about some of those films specifically.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, this has been On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this has been
Hudson Lewis Scott.
Thanks so much for watching.
If you or someone you know has a story to tell, scan this QR code and get in touch with the StoryHive On Location team.